Hello, Namaskar, Vanakkam. My name is Sudhir Sahasranaman and you're watching CBSE with Sudhir. Let's look at the first chapter of the civics portion as part of your social science textbook. This is the textbook Exploring Society for Class 8 students. And if you look at the fifth chapter, because I would assume most schools would start with one chapter of geography, one chapter of history, one chapter of civics, and maybe the only chapter of economics as well. So let me just quickly look at the index. So the civics, the governance and democracy section has two chapters, which is essentially the civics portion, universal franchise and elections in India, and the second one is about the parliamentary system. Economics has only one chapter on the factors of production. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to do the civics part in two videos. This will be part one of that video. Okay, so let's get started. Comment, like, share, and subscribe. Now, the first part when we are talking about is this quote by Alladi Krishnaswamy Iyer, okay, who was taking part in the Constituent Assembly debates. He said that India adopted the principle of adult franchise. I'll explain to you what adult franchise is. With an abundant, means a lot of faith in the common man, that the common man of India will be able to select and elect and choose a leader, an able leader who will be able to represent him in the Lok Sabha and in the state assemblies, right? And this, according to Alladi Krishnaswamy Iyer, was the ultimate success of democratic rule, where people chose who will rule over them. And this has been successful for India in the last 75 years. 1951-52 were the first elections held in India, and 75 years later, 75 years later, we are still a very vibrant democracy. Yes, there are problems, there are issues, but on the whole, if we look at several other countries, it has been a very great success story. Look at Pakistan, which was created at the same time. I mean, because of partition. Look the kind of elections which are held there and the kind of elections that are held in India, right? So never before in the history of the world has such an experiment been so boldly undertaken. So this was Krishnaswamy Iyer in 1949. You can see some of the headlines of the 2024 elections, right? The kind of people who came out and voted in the election. Yes, it's always been a bit of a problem because the turnout is general, it hovers around 60 to 70% in most areas. In urban areas, even less. And in rural areas, it's comparatively a little more. Okay. Now, these are the three things that we will be talking about in this particular chapter. What is universal adult franchise? What is an electoral system? And how does India's electoral system, that is India's election system, really operate? Now, you can see here people are coming out to vote, and this is how people vote, and which is why I have put this particular illustration. People coming out to vote, and they get this sign on their index finger when they go to vote. Now, universal adult franchise, what exactly is it? Let me explain to you with the help of my definition. The Constitution of India, when it was framed, it implemented universal adult franchise. What it did was to ensure that every adult above the age of 21 at that time, subsequently in the 1980s, the age limit for voting was brought down to 18. So from 1951-52, or when the Constitution was made in 1950, till about I think it was 87-88, when Rajiv Gandhi was Prime Minister, he reduced it to 18 years of age. Okay, so earlier it was 21, then it was brought down to 18. So every adult, irrespective of what caste he or she belongs to, irrespective of what religion or gender he or she belongs to, or whether he is poor or rich, he or she has an equal say in choosing the representative and thereby who forms the government in Delhi or in the different states. So this adult franchise, universal adult franchise, universal means for everyone. Adult franchise was supposed to ensure democracy, equality for everyone, and social justice. That is, It does not matter whether you are a Hindu, a Muslim, a Christian, or a Sikh, or a Buddhist. It does not matter what your caste is. It does not matter what your occupation is. It does not matter whether you pay income tax or you do not pay income tax. You still will have a vote, and the value of the vote of the richest man in India will be equal to the value of the vote of the poorest person in the country. Understood? So this is how social and economic justice was ensured. So if you look at the definition which is given in your textbook, franchise is a right which is granted by the constitution. Okay. And another term which is used for the same thing is called suffrage. Suffrage is a synonym of franchise. Suffrage in American context, they prefer to call it suffrage. Okay. So this is what is the adult franchise thing, that everyone has the right to vote irrespective of caste, creed, race, religion, gender, education, income, etc. Okay. And this is what, 1988, what I've mentioned to you, right? 21 to 18. Now, universal franchise is a cornerstone. Like, this is a must of Indian democracy. And elections to the Lok Sabha, which is the house of the people. Like, for example, if I am in a constituency, for example, if I am, let's say, in Thiruvananthapuram, right? I am voting Shashi Tharoor of the Congress versus Rajiv Chandrasekhar of the BJP. I want to vote for one of them. So I will go and click on that particular name and my vote will go to that particular candidate, right? So it depends. So, and that person will go and represent the people of Thiruvananthapuram in the Lok Sabha, right? So is a cornerstone of Indian democracy. Elections to the Lok Sabha, the legislative assembly in different states, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Maharashtra, Gujarat, etc. And all the local elections in villages and cities are based on universal adult franchise. This comes under Article 326 of the Indian Constitution, right? Also, and this is a major contentious topic right now, each person can have only one vote. Okay, if I am a citizen in a particular city, in a particular state, I can vote only in that particular city and that particular state. If I have a vote in another city, another state, or even in my own city, that is illegal. That action can be taken against me for holding two voter IDs. So that is something which you cannot do. This is a major contentious topic right now in 2025 August, and hopefully something will come out of it, because this amounts to doing something illegal which should not be done, right? So you can have only one vote in one election. You can vote only once, right? If there is a Lok Sabha election, you can vote only in the constituency that you are registered as a voter, right? Now, can you calculate how long you have to wait before you can vote? Now, assuming you are 13 years of age, you will have to wait for another 5 years before you can vote at the age of 18, right? The first election that will be held in your constituency after you turn 18 is when you will be voting for the first time. Like, for example, my daughter, of course, now she just turned 22, but she voted for the first time in 2024. 2023, though she is registered as a voter here, she was not present here. She was in her college. She couldn't come. But in 2024 Lok Sabha elections was the first time when she voted. Now, to be able to exercise your right, you need to be registered as a voter in your constituency. What I just now told you. Now, what is a constituency, right? What is a constituency? A constituency is an area whose voters elect a representative to a legislative body. It could be an MP, which would be to the Lok Sabha. If it is an MLA, it would be to the Legislative Assembly. MLA means Member of Legislative Assembly. MP means Member of Parliament. So Shashi Tharoor, who won the election in Thiruvananthapuram, is the Lok Sabha Member of Parliament from Thiruvananthapuram Lok Sabha constituency. Okay. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the Member of Parliament from Varanasi Lok Sabha constituency. Okay, I hope this is clear. Now, 2024, we had the last general election. 980 million voters were eligible to exercise their franchise for the 543 constituencies of the Lok Sabha. So this figure you need to remember, that there are 543 constituencies in the Lok Sabha. Now, do you know, and this is a very great, fascinating fact, that India has 3.1, that is 31 lakh elected representatives from the Lok Sabha MP to the MLAs in different states to the Panchayat, Sarpanch and Zilla Parishad chairperson, etc. And 1.3 million of them are women. That is almost 1/3, right? And all of them are democratically elected. Now, obviously, if it is possible, like for example, my vote will be where all? I will vote for the MP, I will vote for the MLA in my state, I will also vote for the local municipal elections because I live in a city. If I were living in a village, I would vote for the Panchayat Sarpanch in my area, in my village, right? So at least 3 different elections you would always be voting. Please remember that. Now, we need an elaborate and well-organized system to manage this massive exercise because it's obviously, so many voter lists, so many voters. Just imagine how many voters are there. So it needs to be a very foolproof. So there is an organization called the Election Commission of India, about which we will study in part 2 of this chapter, which is in charge of conducting the elections in India, right? So we have an electoral system. What is an electoral system? It is a group of interconnected and interdependent elements that work together to achieve a common purpose or system. That is a system. Election system is to work together in order to conduct an election. I'll give you an example. You may be living in an apartment. Let's assume that there are, okay, I'll give you the example of what happened when I was a child in Delhi. Okay, there were 360 flats in our entire complex. 360. 120 into ground floor, first floor, second floor. So 120 into 3. So an election was held to elect the 5 representatives of the committee who would run the committee for the next 1 year. They would be in charge of collecting the maintenance, taking care of any plumbing work, electrical work, cleanliness in the colony, maintaining the parks, etc. Everything, right? So there was this thing. My father was, there were 2 sets of committees, right? 2 sets of candidates who were contesting for that election. My father was in one of the committee and he was contesting for the post of treasurer. So there was a post of president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and an executive member. There were 5 other people in the opposite camp. So then there was an election, which meant 360 people, the owners of the 360 flats, were eligible to vote in that election. So 360 people voted that, oh, this person is my choice for president, but I don't like the vice president candidate in this committee. So vice president, I will choose from the other committee, right? That's also possible. Secretary, I will select here. Treasurer, I will select here. Executive member, I will select here. So that way people can vote. So every person will put 5 votes in the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and executive member slot. My father won the election. He was treasurer for a year. So what I'm saying is, this is the way elections take place everywhere. Same concept is for MP, MLA, though of course that is now with electronic voting machine. Now, before independence, and this is something very important, before independence, only 13% of Indians were allowed to vote before independence, right? Because there were certain restrictions. It was not universal adult franchise. The right to vote was not extended to everyone, right? And India, when it became independent in 1947, when its constitution was written, it decided that when the first elections will be held in 1951-52, everyone will have the right to vote. For example, in USA, you are seeing women are taking out a suffrage parade because they are demanding the right to vote, right? For example, even in a country like Switzerland, in Europe, in very modern Europe, the right to vote to women was given only in 1971. That is 20 years after us, right? And women had to fight long and hard in many countries to win this fundamental democratic right. In India, on the other hand, India was extremely progressive, and I think credit must be given to the founding fathers of our country, the people who led us at that point in time, and those who wrote the constitution that who decided that everyone will be given the right to vote, including women, including people of all religions, castes, and economic status. Now, the question that arises is in 1947, the literacy rate was only about 14%, okay, which and only about 8% among women, which meant 92% of the women in India in 1947 could not read or write. 86% of the men in India in 1947 could not read and write. So some people obviously argued that when they do not know how to read and write, they're not educated, they're not literate, so they may just go and choose anyone, and that will not be an informed choice. So therefore, this was an argument made that the right to vote should be given only to literate people, people who can read and write. What do you think is the right thing, and why the constitution makers of that time decided that no, this is not the right approach, it should be 100%? Let me tell you the answer to this. The constitution maker decided on universal adult franchise from the time of independence itself, because democracy needs equality. Equality is one of the cornerstones of democracy. We studied that in class 7. So if voting rights are given only to the literate people, that would exclude, that would kind of keep away the poor people, the women, and anyone who is from a marginalized group, in the sense that people of so-called lower caste, maybe some religions would be excluded, which will not be fair at all. Then the constitution, see, I mean, elections is something very close to my heart, because I have covered what, over 25 elections in the last 30 years. So Lok Sabha, Assembly, Panchayat, municipal elections. So I mean, this is like, I'm on home ground. This is my territory, ye mera maidan hai. Okay, trust in people's wisdom. The constitution makers also thought that we need to trust the wisdom of the Indian people, because the same Indian people who managed to drive out the British from our country. So why can't we trust them to have the right kind of intelligence and common sense, that they will be able to elect the right kind of person to parliament, to the legislative assembly, to the panchayat, to the municipality, right? So they believe that ordinary citizens, Indians, even if they were not formally educated, they could make responsible political choices. This is reason number 2. Reason number 3 is that for the sake of social justice, because under the British, we had suffered so many years of inequality on the basis of caste, on the basis of religion, gender, colonial rule, everything. Now it's not. When we have become independent, we cannot suddenly say that, oh, the independence is only for the literate people, the independence is only for the rich people, you poor people stand out. Then what's the difference between the British rule and now independent India? So it was a no. For the sake of social justice, it was necessary to give every adult Indian. Okay, you are not giving it to a child, because a child is not capable of making an informed choice. But an adult Indian above 21 years of age at that time should have an equal voice to build a fair Indian society. Then the 4th reason is, for the sake of national unity, equal voting rights help bind together a diverse country, because if Kerala, Tamil Nadu is so different from a Jammu and Kashmir, is so different from a Gujarat, is so different from an Assam, right? In terms of language, culture, clothing, eating food habits, everything, right? So this was necessary, that everyone is considered equal. So what you're seeing in the illustration is precisely that. It's a vote for democracy. My vote is my right. I decide whether I want a BJP representative, a Congress representative, any of the regional party representatives. It is my right. Okay, ye mera adhikar hai, right? Now, these are some of the other reasons why universal adult franchise is important, that people participate in solving problems in that area, right? What I have given you, you can always put this in the 2 boxes. Okay, people decide who can represent them, right? Then all can participate in deciding the nation's future. People can vote them out. Oh, I don't like this government, they have not done any good work. I am going to vote them out. They only keep imposing taxes. They only keep increasing the prices of essential commodities like petrol, vegetables, pulses, etc. I don't like them. I'm going to vote them out. So, or this government is extremely corrupt. I am going to vote it out. So that right is in my hands. And there is no discrimination on the basis of caste, sex, gender, education, etc. The next section that we come to is about bridging barriers, enabling participation, ensuring universal adult franchise. Because democracy thrives only when every eligible citizen can freely and fairly participate in the electoral process. In many states, there is that thing, people say, oh, your vote has already been cast, get lost kind of thing. Muscle power is used. Or in some states, money is given in order to ensure that, okay, you have 4 votes in your family, we will give 500 rupees per vote, 2000 rupees for the votes, you vote for this party, right? So that also happens to a large extent in many states in India, which is extremely unfortunate. It's unlawful. It should not be done. But people also have become like that, oh, you guys, you politicians make so much of money, so this is the time for making money. Or there are some villages which will say, unless you build the road to our village, you will not get any votes from our village. That kind of stuff also happens in many villages, right? So you would do that kind of thing. Or there are people who are on the border of 2 states who will try to hold voter ID cards in this state also, in that state also, and take benefits from candidates in both the states, right? So all these kind of things happen, right? I remember in Tamil Nadu, this kind of thing happened, where in southern part of Tamil Nadu, where a particular party, in order to bribe the voter, it slipped 500 rupee note along with the morning newspaper in every voter's household. That kind of bribery of the voters has also happened in many elections. So elections in India are by and large well, undertaken in a proper way, but there are problem areas. Let's not be blind to it. Now, let's look at something like this, that the population of eligible voters in India is 15 times the population of United Kingdom, that country which ruled over us at one point in time. And in terms of area, India is 6 times the size of France, another powerful country in Europe, right? So geographical diversity, I mean, there are areas where there is only one voter, and that person from the representative official of the Election Commission of India will travel by boat through the forest only to ensure that that one person's vote is also recorded, right? And that one person will not come in the morning at 8 o'clock when the polling booth opens. He'll come around at 3 o'clock. So that person has to keep waiting for that. There is a beautiful movie called Newton, Rajkumar Rao and Pankaj Tripathi. Excellent movie about voting which takes place in Chhattisgarh. And in Chhattisgarh kind of places, the Maoists also play a role. They say that elections should be boycotted. So people out of fear do not come out and vote. So the voting percentage is very low. Of course, now the Naxal Maoist problem has been contained to a large extent. But in past 20 years ago, etc., in Andhra Pradesh, in the Telangana districts at that time, Chhattisgarh, etc., Maoists used to say boycott the elections because they do not believe in that. So, in fact, Uttar Pradesh, which has the largest population in India, I think around 23 crores. If it were to be a country in itself, it would be the 5th largest country in the world. Do you know that? It would be the 5th largest country in terms of population, right? So, that these are all very fascinating facts. Election Commission of India, we will read about it in the next part of this particular chapter. And electoral officials, as I said, they travel to remote locations. In 2024, for the first time, the elderly and people with disabilities could cast their votes from home. That happened for the first time. Okay, the postal voting option, which is normally given only to government officials who would be taking part in the election process. For example, if I have been asked to, like government school teachers, some government officials, they are put as, they are put in charge of supervising the entire election process. So if I have to go to another constituency, I can cast it in the form of a postal ballot in my constituency. before I leave home to go to that constituency, right? And similarly, braille-enabled voter cards were given. App-based requests for assistance, wheelchairs, ramps, etc., were also made possible. Okay. So, what role do such measures play a role? Basically, to encourage more and more people to come out and vote, because this is called a festival of democracy, where everyone should be encouraged to come out and vote in large numbers, right? You should tell them that unless you go out and exercise your vote, you, the next time you complain about something not okay in your area, or saying that, oh, the tax rates are very high, they are being pleasing us, you don't have the right to complain if you have not exercised your right to vote. That is something which should be elementary, right? So you can always go to the Election Commission of India website, the ECI website, and read the various things which are undertaken by the ECI. So these are some of the photographs which are there. People voting. Let me show you my this thing. I've put it out here. This is Tejaswini, who voted for the first time in 2024. Actually, the photograph is reverse. Actually, both of us are actually showing our left hand. The right hand side picture is the close up of my index finger. So this is where the photograph is taken. So this photograph, that reverse has happened. That's why it's looking as though we are showing a right index finger, right? So this is how the voting happens, and this was in 2024 April when Tejaswini voted for the first time. Okay. Now, the other thing, yeah, okay, this we have gone through. Let me go through the next one. Yeah, this particular question, about 34% of eligible voters did not vote in the 2024 elections. Why do you think this is the case, and what are the challenges people face in exercising their rights? You want an answer? I will give you the answer. So the answer is, the first one is, there is lack of interest or awareness. People feel, kya karna hai? What difference will my one vote make? Do you know something? People have lost by one vote. I remember doing this story on this particular person called Konatala Ramakrishna. Did he win or lose? I've forgotten. The difference, the victory margin for him was 9 votes. I think he won 9 votes. He won by 9 votes, as I'm talking about in the 1990s, right? So people can lose or win by a very, very thin, razor thin margin. So every vote matters. So lack of interest or awareness, some feel their single vote will not make a difference, or they're not very well informed about the candidates. I don't even know who the candidate is, yeah, so I'm not going to vote, or the polling process. Then the other reason could be distrust in politicians. Politicians are corrupt people, yeah, we don't want to vote for any of them. So they feel that voting exercise is a pointless exercise. Then the third reason is that many people have to work, though it is mandatory for companies to declare a holiday on the day of voting in that particular constituency. But in case if that doesn't happen, workers go to work, or the students, for example, Tejaswini, in December 2023, when the assembly elections were held in our state, she was not here. She was studying in Chennai. So she could not come back to vote because her exams were going on. So in that case, that vote does not happen. Practical difficulties. There are long queues. Lok Sabha elections were held in the peak summer months of April. So obviously it becomes very difficult to go for people to go out in the hot sun. So then people think that, leave it, I will not go out and vote. Then there are social barriers, like the women, elderly, or the marginalized groups sometimes face restrictions. In villages, etc., this happens that somebody will say, everybody has to vote for this candidate. And I may not be in favor of that. So I will say, I'm sick, I cannot go out to vote. So that kind of thing can also happen. Then work pressures make people skip voting day. So these are some of the reasons why this can happen. Then there is this don't miss out section about how Uttaramerur inscriptions from the 10th century describe a transparent process for the selection of representatives. Eligible candidates' names were written on fragments of palm leaves, okay, and they were put in a pot. Then it was sealed, and on the selection day, it was opened publicly, and a young boy who will be chosen randomly, he will draw out the palm leaves. So it's almost more of a lottery kind of a system. Okay, now let's look at this particular example which has been given, which is related to your school. That a class representative has to be elected, right? So he would, what the job of the class rep would be, to represent the class in meetings. Okay, I used to be my class rep both in school as well as in college. act as a bridge between the students and the school authorities. So three students, Ahmed, Gurmat, and Ravi, right? They decided to contest for the position of the class rep. So what did the class teacher Usha ma'am do? She was the election officer, and she wanted to ensure that the election was held in a fair and transparent manner and following all the rules. So then everybody canvass for themselves that if I am elected, what is it that I will do? So Ahmed promised to improve the cleanliness of the classroom, that the classrooms will be more neat and tidy. Also the playground. Gurmat was wanting to help the classmates. So she said that I will encourage peer coaching and mutual support. So somebody is not very strong in mathematics, someone else who is good in mathematics will help that particular student. Ravi wanted to create more space for the arts curriculum, music, theater, visual arts, etc. So this is what is their what can we say, a manifesto, right? A manifesto will declare what is it that is. So if I am interested in peer coaching, so I will vote for Gurmat. But if I am interested in participating in theater and arts, I will vote for Ravi, right? So it depends on what is it that the candidates are offering and what is it that I am interested in, right? So they would campaign, they would put up posters, they would go to every voter and say, please vote for me. If you vote for me, this is what I will end up doing, right? And on voting day, depending on what I think works best for me and who I think is the best. For example, I may think that the first candidate is an extremely friendly person, but Ravi is an arrogant fellow. So I don't like him. He was rude to me last week. So my vote, so it can happen even because of personal choices. So my vote will go for the first candidate, right? So that's how it can happen. And there was one candidate who was visually challenged. So for Neha, there was a voting paper written in Braille. So that's how sensitive you have to be to people, towards people who come with different kinds of abilities and disabilities. So the votes are 33 votes are cast, and Usha called Miss Shiba from the next class to witness, so that there is an impartial, neutral observer, right? And then the votes were cast. Ahmed received 8 votes, Gurmat received 12, and Ravi received 10. So Gurmat got the maximum votes, and she was declared as the new class rep. So obviously, people, students wanted peer coaching and that kind of support from their classmates. So Ahmed and Ravi congratulated Gurmat and said that we will support and help you for anything that you need. So this is how an ideal election is conducted. So you can now answer these questions. What are the important aspects? The campaigning, the kind of issues on which this thing, the clear electoral process, the who all have a chance and the right to vote, secret ballot. Because if I am Ravi's friend, okay, but I voted for Ahmed because I want the classrooms to be clean, right? But Ravi should not feel bad that I did not vote for him. So therefore, a secret ballot is very important, so that there is no bad blood later on. I'll give you an example from what happens in the Lok Sabha or the assembly elections. For example, an entire village, okay, an entire village, I mean, candidate comes and says, please vote for me, please vote for me. Now I know the candidate beforehand, but I know him, but I actually dislike the candidate. I think he's an extremely corrupt and arrogant fellow. So I don't think he will be a good representative. I want to vote for someone else. But if I vote for someone else, and if this fellow comes to know, he will come and take revenge on me. He's a gunda. So I don't want to do that. So secret ballot ensures that nobody comes to know. I can tell him, sir, I voted for you only. Very sorry that you lost. But in reality, I voted for this guy, right? So that's all. He will not be able to come to know to whom did my vote go. Okay. So that's how the secret ballot helps. What considerations? We have already discussed that. Do you think the students have any responsibility? It is to support her in way that, she's our class representative, to ensure that she kind of raises all the issues that the students have in that particular class. Then Usha, the ma'am, what role did she play? You can talk about that to ensure that everything happened properly. Why was a braille ballot paper organized for Neha? And what would happen if many students chose not to mark a preference? Their votes will be declared as invalid. That is, their votes will be counted as nil, invalid votes, if they did not mark a preference. There would be people who will say, I don't like any of them, or I like all of them, so I can't make up my mind, so I will not vote for any of them. These votes will be declared as invalid votes. They are not valid votes. They will not be taken up for counting. Okay. Now, imagine if a student did not want to vote for any of the candidates, Ahmed, Gurmat, or Ravi. What option did he have? Now, in this particular class election, did not have that option. But in the general election, you do have the option which is called NOTA, none of the above. NOTA, right? Which means that there are 10 candidates, but I think all 10 of them are useless candidates. I don't want to vote for any of them, but I still want to go to the ballot box, secret ballot box, and I want to tell them that I think all of you are useless. So I want to vote for NOTA, none of the above. It is to register my protest and the quality of the candidates that has been presented before me who have stood for election. So NOTA is therefore a powerful tool in a democracy. Let me explain to you in more detail. Now, this is how an EVM looks, since you would have never seen an EVM. So you will have these kind of, different, this thing. This is an AI generated image, so it's like random. You should have some name here also. NOTA is the last one, none of the above. So if you do not like Sunita Yadav, if you do not like this candidate, if you do not like Ravi Kumar, if you do not like Anita Sharma, you can go ahead and vote. You can punch on this button, NOTA button, and say, so your vote will be registered as a NOTA vote. But so always it happens that NOTA votes are counted. So NOTA option allows the voters to reject all candidates if they feel none of them are suitable, but they still exercise their right to vote. Okay. It strengthens the democratic expression. So people will feel, the parties will feel, oh, there are so many NOTA voters. So perhaps the candidate we fielded was not liked by the people, was not acceptable to the people. So the party presidents, the party leadership will also realize that, right? Because whoever is punching on NOTA is conveying the dissatisfaction, the disapproval to the parties. What happens? You would ask this. What happens if NOTA gets the most number of votes? क्या ऐसा हो सकता है? Even if NOTA gets the highest number of votes in Indian elections, the candidate, this in different countries it's different, but in Indian elections, even if NOTA gets the maximum number of votes, let's assume that this NOTA, let's assume that it get 200 votes. Anita Sharma got 100 votes. Ravi Kumar got 80 votes. This person got 60 votes. This Sunita Yadav, let's say, got 90 votes, and NOTA got 200 votes. Even then, the candidate with the number of valid votes, which in this case would be Anita Sharma, she would be declared the winner. Okay. This means that NOTA cannot cancel or rerun, because obviously to conduct an election again is an extremely expensive matter. But people would realize, Arey, what kind of a candidate? Even NOTA got more than you. So the Anita Sharma would be a weak kind of a representative. And the party which fielded also will think that we fielded her, but look, even NOTA got more than her. So that kind of a thing will be thought about. But there are some local body elections in some states, I think Maharashtra and Haryana, where there are some different rules. So if NOTA gets more votes, they don't kind of declare the second highest as the winner. They have different rules, but that's only in the local body, the panchayat level elections, not at the Lok Sabha or the assembly election, where the rule is that even if NOTA gets the highest number of votes, the candidate with the largest number of valid votes would be declared the winner. Okay. So what we are doing is to pause here. I hope you're enjoying the way I'm explaining in great detail. Also, I want to tell you one thing, and you are all 13-year-old students. You need to take part in debates, in speech competitions, in declamations, in public speaking. Okay, if you see the way I throw my voice, and that's because from when I was in class 4, I have been on the stage as a public speaker, taking part in different competitions. So the voice modulation, the way you throw your voice, your body language, the way you use your shoulder and your hands is all very important to ensure that you are able to hold the attention of the listener or the audience. It could be 5 people, it could be 5,000 people, but that's what is important. So public speaking is an extremely critical tool, because going ahead, when you are to make presentations, if you do your MBA or even if you're a doctor, engineer, if you have to make your presentation before the board or before a group of people, this kind of an ability to hold someone's attention will actually help you a lot. So please do take part in public speaking competitions, public speaking events. I really think more than anything else, it are these kind of qualities, these kind of strengths which will really help you get ahead of many of your peers. Okay, tata, bye bye. I will see you in part 2 of this video, which will be about the role of the Election Commission of India, which is called the ECI. Thank you very much. Tata, bye bye. Namaskar.